I think we are increasingly talking to families and serving families who are relying on the safety net, but realizing as the cost from everything, from like you said, from food to healthcare to rent to mortgage costs going up, they are realizing that the safety net exists, but it is increasingly becoming fragile, and it is increasingly being woven together with barbed wire, right? And so it's there, but it's not enough, and it's going to be painful to even try to rely on that.
Hey, y'all. This is where Texas politics gets interesting. Here again are two guys named Jason, some great guests, and cold Texas beer for another smart conversation on yall-itics, the unofficial political podcast of Texas.
Well, hello, folks, and welcome to yall-itics. This is an unusual voice and face that you are hearing and seeing. I'm Teresa Woodard, and I am filling in for both Jason Whiteley and Jason Wheeler this week. You know, I'm wondering, they get the two guys to do it together. When the woman comes in, she has to do it alone. Is there something to be said there? I don't know. But this week, we are talking about something that I think is really critical, not just to Texas right now, but all across this country, and that is just folks are hurting. We are going to talk about economic strain and economic pain. I think it's something that most of us are experiencing, whether it is going to the grocery store, whether it is trying to figure out how you're going to cover the cost of a medical bill, whether you are re-enrolling in your health insurance and seeing that premiums are going up, property taxes, insurance for your car, all of the things. Just life is not cheap. Never really has been, but it feels like the strain is worse than ever. When you add to it a government shutdown, and as we record this, the potential for SNAP benefits to go away, it just means that people are facing a lot of pain. So we wanted to get a real life story here. We wanted to feel or to listen to what it's like on the ground right now. And so we are bringing in, as our guest on yall-itics this week, the COO of Metrocrest. Calvin Moore is with us this morning. Calvin, we really appreciate you taking some time to talk with us and giving us a really honest look at what's going on.
Teresa, thank you for having me. I'm looking forward to the conversation.
Yeah, so broadly, tell us what Metrocrest does, because I know of you. I am a news reporter here in North Texas, grew up in Dallas. I have certainly heard of Metrocrest, but we may have listeners and viewers who aren't familiar with you. So what kind of services do you provide?
Sure, happy to give a quick overview. And, Metrocrest has been here in business in Carrollton, serving the Metrocrest area for more than 50 years now. And our main mission is to empower individuals to achieve self-sufficiency and foster independence. And really, the organization serves families and individuals and seniors by providing a comprehensive bundle of services, addressing gaps in nutrition, finances, employment, and we're here to help with emergency situations as well. But the goal is really to holistically help end poverty, one family at a time. And our vision really is to build a thriving community for all, guided by our core values of kindness, inclusion, positivity, and open-mindedness in everything that we do.
You guys are all encompassing. I mean, that's one reason I wanted to talk with you, is because we can hear specific stories about people who provide food assistance. We can hear different stories from people who provide utility assistance, but you guys do it all. When you think about the families who are walking through your door right now, I know you haven't been at Metrocrest for too long, but you know the history. How do you compare the situations you're seeing now versus maybe what we were seeing just a couple of years ago? Are things different for folks?
Sure, and just a little bit of background. I've been working in this role with Metrocrest for about a year and 3 months, but I've been in the nonprofit space as a professional for more than 20 years. And the stories are really all the same. Families are hurting. They need additional support. And I think increasingly, especially since 2020, because 2020 with COVID-19, that was really a low watermark, if you will, for all organizations who are struggling trying to help folks. And I think the big difference then is that everyone realized that we were all in trouble. And so the nation really came together and started kind of rolling, in the same direction to help get us through that crisis. And I think now we have a number of crises that are occurring, and I think there's a lot of division that's still going on. But people are really really hurting, seriously looking for additional assistance just to make it. And if you talk to our clients, I think the general sentiment is, the big question is, when is the break going to come? When is help going to arrive? When are things going to get better? And you're following the same news cycle that I'm following. We all understand that this is going to be a long haul for us.
Is there a common denominator that seems to be making things worse right now? Is it food prices? Is it that salaries aren't keeping up? Or is everybody's individual story different?
I think there may be some differences around the edges, but for the most part, the main issues, the main drivers, in our opinion, are the cost of housing, right?
Yeah.
So if you go back to 2020, you do a comparison to what's going on now, home prices have risen 70 to 80% in the North Texas area. If you look at the all food consumer index pricing and those increases, the all food index consumer index has increased 23.6% over the last 5 years, and on average, salaries and wages have only increased about 17%. So the data seems to point to kind of a yawning gap between what folks are able to afford and what actual prices really, really are. And we're going to see that. We're going to see that continue to get worse.
What do your staff members say to the clients who, like you said earlier, are just kind of waiting for a break? How do you counsel these folks who are just trying to make it? And I heard somebody say the other day, it's not even month to month anymore, it's day to day. How do you counsel them when they're going through this?
Well, one of the things that we really try to focus on at Metrocrest Services is the servant leadership, and we don't want to just try to give folks a solution or tell them what to do. We want to be able to walk through this journey with them. And I have to tell you, I mean, even just yesterday, we had an individual who broke down in the pantry because, and I think part of it was thankfulness that the Metrocrest Services pantry was there, but the realization that SNAP benefits were going away,
Yep.
and that was the best opportunity for her to help provide for her family. And part of it is ramping up our capacity to do more for them, but philanthropy will not fill the gap, right? And I think everyone has to understand that. And the other part is just being human, right? Helping folks understand, hey, I know it's tough, but we're going to be here with you. We're going to serve you, and we're going to help you every single way we can. And part of that is sometimes just being an empathetic, listening ear,
Yeah.
and a voice of encouragement, along the way. But I want your listeners to understand that philanthropy, nonprofit organizations, we are doing the very best we can. We are being tested under some pretty strenuous restrictions and requirements, just in terms of meeting the financial need of the organization to keep going. And then we're seeing more and more folks, come through the door with more and more drastic needs that have to be addressed.
How worried about you are about the holidays? They're approaching. How worried are you about meeting the need that will be there?
I think we're fairly well positioned. We do a lot of contingency planning. We always expect something to happen, right? It is the business that we're in, but we were already seeing an uptick in requests for services. Again, what's really driving a lot of the pain out there is the making the hard choices between whether or not you're going to buy groceries or pay rent, right? For seniors, and a lot of seniors are impacted by the SNAP cuts as well as children. You're making hard choices between whether or not you're consuming proteins or peanut butter and jelly, for dinner. You're making hard choices between food and medicine, or food and rent. And those are choices that no one wants our neighbors to have to make.
You've mentioned SNAP benefits a couple of times, and I do want to say to folks, we are recording this in late October, a couple of days before we might actually reach this point where I believe it's for the first time in history that SNAP benefits would not be funded. It is a critical point. We know that in Texas alone, 3.5 million people rely on SNAP benefits. Calvin, what would SNAP going away, and again, there could be some sort of a breakthrough that happens. We know that government does not work fast, but they are facing a real challenge here, and so maybe that could motivate them to do something. But what could happen what will happen if SNAP goes away?
Well, look, in a word, people are going to continue to suffer. And if I may just add a little bit more context to this part of the discussion,
please.
To put it into plainer terms, about 1 million people are going in the North Texas area are going to be negatively impacted by the cuts in SNAP. When you compound that with the already deep cuts in USDA and TFAP, the Emergency Food Assistance Program, which are really the dual backbones of all of the food assistance work done on the philanthropic side through food banks. Those are the two main vehicles to get help and assistance to families. Those programs, vital to our community, have already been cut. They've already been sliced, and now you layer on top of that the cuts to SNAP. You layer on top of that the continuing inflation in food costs and housing, and it really creates what we're looking at is a creation of a vortex of suffering, right? And I think you alluded to the fact earlier that in past shutdowns, we've always found a way to fund SNAP. And so we are really truly entering into new territory here where we can't fully appreciate and anticipate the primary and the secondary and the tertiary impacts that the cuts to SNAP are going to have, but we already know that it's going to be catastrophic. I think we are increasingly talking to families and serving families who are relying on the safety net, but realizing as the cost from everything, from, like you said, from food to healthcare to rent to mortgage costs going up, they are realizing that the safety net exists, but it is increasingly becoming fragile, and it is increasingly being woven together with barbed wire, right? And so it's there, but it's not enough, and it's going to be painful to even try to rely on that.
And I think it's also important. I know there's confidentiality, so I'm not going to ask you to talk me through exactly who your clients are. But some people have a misconception that people who receive these benefits aren't trying to work. They're taking advantage. That's not the case in the great majority of cases, correct?
That is correct. the vast majority, even when you start talking about work requirements, the vast majority of folks who are able-bodied and work ready or already working, these programs really, really, really benefit, number one, the working poor, but the vast majority of the folks who are taking who are on the program are seniors and children. So when you talk about able-bodied and work-ready folks, that's really a smaller portion of the group of individuals and families who are able to take advantage of the program. And look, no one gets SNAP without qualifying, and so everyone is playing by the rules. People who are working, who can work, are working for the most part, and but the vast majority of people who rely on the program are seniors and children. And let me add one other point that I think that most folks kind of gloss over or don't know, that impacts all of us, and that's the economic side. For every dollar that's issued in SNAP benefits, that dollar turns about $1.83 in economic activity, which benefits everyone, right? It turns over dollars in our local communities. It boosts economic output. I mean, I read a stat this morning to kind of blow that out to the nationwide. We will see a $12 billion decrease in nationwide economic output if the SNAP cuts go through November, just
Wow.
through November. And so the negative impacts are enormous, and they're going to touch and affect all of us, not just the folks who are relying on the SNAP program.
And Calvin, you talk about it's kind of the trickle down there. I think that there is also a trickle down from the government shutdown, because I would imagine that is having an impact on some of the people who are coming in search of assistance at Metrocrest now too. You have people who have full-time jobs who now aren't getting a paycheck. You have people who maybe have contracts with the government who are not getting the money that they are promised from the government. It all trickles down. So would you say that I'm sure that a government shutdown that lasts for 5-10 days, maybe that lasting impact isn't felt quite as long, but are you in a point now where, 28 something days into this as we record this, where you're starting to see more of an impact from the government shutdown that isn't just going to go away once the government, reopens?
Well, I'll make one statement about that to start off, and that is it's always harder to rebuild something that's been torn down, right? The issue with the shutdown is the longer it goes, the harder it is going to be for families and communities to recover.
Yep.
Here in the Metrocrest area, we aren't as strongly impacted right now for with government workers who are furloughed and not receiving assistance. But we see that on the horizon. We really do see that coming, and we're doing contingency planning. We're preparing for that. As a matter of fact, we've been looking at ways to partner with the food bank with a broader and expansive service opportunity across its projected service area to reach those populations. But the vast majority of those individuals are going to live and work around areas where there are large federal facilities. I think one of the concerns that we have, and I have broadly, is the stress that's being placed upon critical workers like first responders or air traffic controllers. Putting those folks under stress is not a good idea, and so we really want to see the shutdown end. And equally important, we want to make sure that that SNAP funding is restored before additional damage is done to our families.
Calvin, how bad are things for you right now? I mean, how bad is this?
Well, as we sit today, we are, at a manageable level, and in terms of our output and what we're doing with our operations. In other words, and I talked to a bunch of colleagues last night. Um, People are hurting. People are struggling. Right now, the nonprofit sector is managing, but we all see um, the deep curve that is approaching, right? The deep challenge and transition that we're all going to have to make. And the consistent refrain from those colleagues and counterparts is that we can only do so much, right? And I think that is what the public has to understand. We are going to do all we can. We are working diligently. We are looking for ways to more efficiently deliver services. We are ramping up operations. For instance, here, a part of our contingency plan is to increase not only the availability of food, but increase the access to our services by 20%. That may mean going a little bit longer, on our service days during the week, doing some additional emergency distributions on the weekend, and finding ways to enhance our partnerships to make sure that we're meeting the need. But the longer this goes and the larger this grows, our capacity to level up and to meet all the needs is going to be challenged. And that's the story, not only for Metrocrest Services, but it's going to be the story for all nonprofits.
Yeah, I hear the concern in your voice.
Mm, yes.
I do want to ask just a couple more questions here before we leave things. If you could have, say, 5-10 minutes with some of our congressional leaders, the leaders who are making some decisions, what would you tell them your clients need most right now?
I would tell them that our clients really need them to get back to Washington and do their jobs. Because when they don't make a decision that's in the best interest of their constituencies and our clients, then people hurt. And, um, sometimes hurt can be seen as an amorphous term, so I'll spell it out. We see people every day who come in who can't pay their rent, who can't pay their mortgage, are on the verge of not only losing their homes or their apartments, but on the verge of having their families dissolved, who haven't eaten in several days, who are living out of their car. And it's not because they are not trying, it's not because they are not working. A lot of folks come to us because they've had one really bad episode where they've lost a job, something catastrophic has happened in their family, and they have done every single thing they can do to help themselves. A lot of times when they show up at our front door, we are a last resort for them. And so all of our public servants need to understand that people are really hurting. They're struggling. Nonprofits are struggling, trying to keep up, but we cannot fill the service gap. We cannot fill the need gap alone. We need Congress to restore funding to USDA. We need them to stop cutting TFAP because those programs are critical. We need them to restore funding and support for food banks across the nation. And we need them to understand that their constituencies are hard at work trying to provide for their families, but they need additional help just to maintain, just to keep up, just to stay in their homes, just to stay in their apartments, just to feed their families. And look, here's the other thing. A lot of folks that we see are caregivers, right? And so when they're coming to us for support and help, they are actually caring for children. They're caring for elderly parents or grandparents, or they're caring for disabled family members. And so we may see one face that comes into our facility or calls us on the phone. We may hear one voice, but that voice, that face, that person is normally representative of 2, 3, 4, even 5 other individuals who are relying on them. And so the stress levels are really high um, for our clients. You can hear it in their voices. You can see it in their faces. You can understand it in their tears, and we see it every day. And so they need to understand that the suffering in the communities is real, and that we are depending on them to completely do their job and make leadership decisions that are going to positively impact our communities.
Calvin, that's one reason I wanted to have you on this episode of yall-itics, is because I do think that sometimes the people who are making the decisions about this country forget about the stories like you see and hear every day. So thank you for being so open and honest about that. I want to leave not on a down note, but on maybe a hopeful note. So could you tell me maybe how we could help, just as the general population, what we could do to maybe help? And also, do you see any hopeful signs, new partnerships or people stepping up who never have before?
Oh yes, and I'll start answering that question in reverse. That is the one great thing, and it's one of the reasons why I work in the sector and why all of my colleagues come to work every day, because we love people and we love how human beings respond to the needs of other human beings. Our donors, our advisory council, our board members, our staff, stakeholders throughout the community really, really, really support this mission because they have a love for people. They feel called to help people, and they are just responding to folks in need. And when you see that happening every day, where volunteers come out and spend countless number of hours, maybe in the pantry or doing homeless outreach, or counseling one of our neighbors, it is truly, truly inspiring. And we need all of the inspiration that we can get right now.
True.
And this is a special time of the year, a special season, as we get ready to celebrate our community with our gala, which is coming up on November 15th. So if anyone wants to come out and participate in that, you can get tickets, on our website. We really would love your support. You can also volunteer by going to metrocrestservices.org. And those are really the three things, right? We want you to help support the mission by giving or volunteering or referring a neighbor who is in need, who needs help. If you point them in our direction, we'll do every single thing we can to provide assistance. A couple of other exciting things that are really happening during this season. Of course, one of my favorite times of the year, Thanksgiving and Christmas. And on the 22nd of November, we're going to have our annual holiday giveaway, where we give turkeys and all of the fixings for Thanksgiving meal, some dry goods, produce, and bread to about 1,000 families. And you have to go online and sign up for this. But we do it every year in the spirit of gratitude and generosity. And the other thing that we do this time of year in the spirit of gratitude and generosity is open up our holiday store. And we'll start setting them up around the 1st of December. And we hope to have it all open for shoppers, and families can come and shop for free. Those who've signed up for the program and given an appointment time can sign up and shop for free to get unwrapped toys and goods for their family for the Christmas holidays. And we also have coat drives, and we give away a lot of coats for the changing weather that we were talking about earlier. So a great time of the year. Fantastic antidote for a lot of the negativity that we're seeing in our news cycle, but you're reminded that folks are super, super generous and super joyful to help neighbors in need, and we're always happy to help facilitate that.
Calvin, I will say anytime that you do just a random act of kindness, I feel like it clears your mind and makes you feel better about your little sphere, if you know your little impact that you can have. So I would encourage folks out there to listen to what you just said and act on that and try to help in the best way that they can. Perhaps it's not, if you can't open your wallet right now, which I totally understand, maybe you can give a couple of hours and help out with Metrocrest or at some of our other agencies. This has been such a wonderful conversation. Calvin, I appreciate your candor, your honesty, and we're grateful. We're grateful for agencies like Metrocrest and all the countless others across North Texas and across the state of Texas. So thanks so much.
Teresa, thank you so much. It's great to see you and really appreciate the opportunity to educate folks on our mission and what we're doing. So thank you so much for the opportunity.
You got it. Okay, during that conversation with Calvin, I mentioned that I heard someone saying that it's no longer month to month, it is day to day when it comes to Texans just trying to figure out how they're going to get by. I heard that from Texas State Representative Jean Wu from Houston, the chair of the House Democratic Caucus. He was on a call with other Democrats, and they were talking mostly about healthcare premiums, but he was also just talking about affordability in general. I want to play that clip for you now.
All the people that I've talked to in our communities, they're already living paycheck to paycheck. It's not even month to month anymore. It's week to week, day to day. People are dying out there. People are not going to survive the end of the year. And while food prices are going up, people are being laid off, the Republicans are taking away the protections that we have. And it is just sickening. The people in my community have so much fear about what is going on in our economy, in our food supply system, and most of all, in their health care. Because people are looking at the signups for the next year and they can't swing this. They cannot swing these doubling and tripling of costs that are already high. Some of the most frequent users of this program are small business owners who cannot afford to buy large health insurance, who cannot afford to buy insurance for their own. And that's how we keep them going, by helping their employees pay for health insurance. This is all going to bite us in the ass in the long run, because when people don't have to pay these high insurance premiums, they're not going to pay them. They're just going to go without insurance like they've done in the past. And they're going to go to the ER when they get really sick, and all those costs are going to be passed on to us. And everyone who has insurance, your insurance is going to go up too. We have to save working class Americans by stopping the Republicans when they're doing this. And I support the Senate Democrats and support of the House Democrats as well. Please keep going. Please keep fighting for us. Don't let them win.
Okay, you can hear a lot of fire and passion from Jean Wu there. Somebody else who is always fiery and passionate is Congresswoman Beth Van Duyne from Irving. We talked with her right when the shutdown began. We're now more than 30 days in, more than a month in, and we thought it was the proper time to revisit, see where she thinks things are standing. Turns out Metrocrest, the nonprofit agency where Calvin is from, is actually just one block outside of her congressional district. So we took some of his concerns and some of the concerns that we're hearing from Texans to her when we talked with her for Inside Texas Politics. You know, that's the other show that Jason Whiteley hosts. And so when I'm filling in for him here, I'm also filling in for him there. So take a listen to Congresswoman Beth Van Duyne. Representative Beth Van Duyne, it's good to see you again this morning.
It's great to see you. Thank you for having me on.
So I've been speaking with some nonprofits here in Texas that fight poverty, and they tell me they are really worried right now. They say Texans are hurting, and they're not 100% sure that the folks in power in Washington understand how bad things are right now. So are you concerned, and do you get it?
So yeah, we get it, and we are in touch with these folks that are in our district. We sent out a survey to 160,000 people last week. And we asked them if they were being impacted by the government shutdown, and we had about 2,600 responses. 55% said they weren't impacted by the shutdown. 26% said they were. That's almost a quarter of all of North Texas folks that responded to the survey, and 19% had mixed messages. You know, now some of the people that were impacted by it could have been flight delays. It could be people who are trying to get their passport, people who are waiting on SBA loans. But this is an avoidable government shutdown. It did not need to happen. And I will tell you, it was a compromise CR that the especially the fiscal hawks in the Congress sent over. This was a bill that for dozen plus times Democrats had supported when Biden was in office.
Democrats will say, that they shut the government down in order to try to extend the subsidies that make healthcare more affordable through the Affordable Care Act. Prices for 2026 did just come out last week. It looks like overall average increase is going to be 30% higher for people. What do you say to your constituents who say that's going to break the bank and I can't afford 30% more?
I'd say what we were arguing when we were all against all the Republicans, because none of them voted for it, when we were against the Affordable Care Act that has done nothing to make health care affordable. What it has done is benefit health insurance companies. So I would say, my Democrat colleagues, your experiment with the socialist health care has completely failed. It has increased the cost of healthcare. It has decreased access. It has decreased quality. And if you really want to talk about healthcare, come back to the table, stop holding the entire country hostage, come back to the table, and let's talk about healthcare. But let's also acknowledge the fact that the ACA was a complete and utter failure.
As we are recording this, 3.5 million Texans have received word that they are not going to get SNAP benefits funded on November 1st. This helps them cover the cost of groceries. There could have been, they could have tapped into the emergency reserves in order to fund SNAP. Are you okay with the emergency reserves not being used, and are you okay with SNAP not being funded?
Well, a couple things. One, I think what the legal opinion was is that you can't just tap into it, that the emergency funds are there for emergencies. I was part of the first Trump administration. I worked for Secretary Carson at HUD when Hurricane Harvey happened. When those are the types of emergencies that this fund is set aside for. This fund was not set up for a planned government shutdown that Democrats have created.
Are you surprised that the shutdown has lasted this long?
I am. When I was first asked about it, I was on an interview like 1 minute after it started, and somebody asked how long it was going to, I was assuming it was going to last. My odds were 5 to 7 days, because I figured what was going to happen was you were going to see Russ Vought come out with a list of programs and agencies that were going to get shut down. That has not happened. I think what you've seen is that an administration has been very strategic in looking at potential cuts. But has also been very strategic in not wanting this shutdown to affect, the vast number of Americans.
Do you think there could be a deal anytime soon?
I think people are going to get sick of it. I think folks are going to start being much more vocal, especially as they are affected by it. And then you're going to see the Democrats come back to their senses, at least I hope, 6, 7 of them that will agree to do the right thing.
Congresswoman, thank you for your time.
Thank you so much. I hope you have a great day.
Bottom line, times are tough for everybody, and who knows when things will get better. The one thing to remember is that help where you can, because kindness always makes a difference. Kindness always matters. Thanks for listening, folks.